Hi Maker, this is Claire from Eclair Makery, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to crochet my apple basket corner to corner blanket square. This blanket square is a part of my pumpkin patch blanket, which you can find available in my pattern shops or on my website as a part of the pumpkin patch blanket crochet along. Be sure to hit the subscribe button below so you don't miss out on any of the upcoming pumpkin patch blanket squares, and we can go ahead and get started. To make this pattern, you will need 5 colors of worsted weight yarn. You'll need your background color, 2 colors for the apples, and 2 colors for the baskets. I am using We Crochet's Bravo worsted for mine, but you can use any type of worsted weight yarn. You will also need a size 6mm crochet hook, and then if you want to follow along with this video, you can use the free graph available on my blog, or you can use the PDF printable version that is available in my shops. So once you get all of your supplies together, we can go ahead and get started. To make this pattern, you can follow along using the free graph that is available on my blog. To read corner to corner graphs, you start in the bottom right corner and work your way all the way up to the top left. Rows start at row 1 and then work their way all the way out to here. You've got row 11 here, which is one of the corners, and then row 13 up here, which is one of the corners. Then once you get to these corners, you start decreasing. So after you have done row 11, which will be a right side row, so you'll start from up here and work down, then you will decrease along the edge here, which I'll show you how to do, and then on row 12 you start working back up to this point, which will be a wrong side row. Then on row 13, which is a right side row, you go all the way down. Row 14, you start doing it where you have that decrease along the edge like you've been doing, and then you start decreasing along the top up here as you go all the way to the corner up here. So remember, each square on the graph counts as 1 stitch, and then you will change colors every time the color changes. You read the graph diagonally as you work, then doing the decreases and increases where you increase out to the corners, then decrease all the way back over here. So this free version is available on my blog, or you can get the printable version available in my shops. So then now that we know how to read the chart, we can go ahead and get started on making the pattern. Once you are ready to begin crocheting your square, you are going to take the color that you're using for the background, and we are going to start making a corner to corner stitch. So if you've never done corner to corner crochet before, it uses a variation of chain stitches and double crochets to create tiny little squares that you use to make a giant one. So to start your first square, you are going to begin by chaining 6 stitches. And then you are going to go to this 4th chain from your hook, and you are going to do 1 double crochet in that chain. And so this forms the first stitch that makes up your first square. Then you are going to do a double crochet in the next 2 stitches, so 1 in each stitch. And then this forms your first corner to corner square. So see, it's really that easy. So then on the next row, this is going to be a wrong side row. So we are going to be working along the back side of the work, but since it's the same color, you can't really tell right now. But in general, with corner to corner patterns, an odd row is a right side row and a even row is a wrong side row. So that again is a odd row is a right side row, and an even row is a wrong side row. So since we are increasing our square out, we are going to start that by doing 6 chain stitches again off of this square, and then we're going to do the same thing again where we go to that 4th chain from our hook, and then we're going to do a double crochet in that stitch, and then another one in the next chain, and then another one in the chain after that. Then you are going to basically, you kind of like turn your square so that they kind of line up like this, and then you are going to go to that 3rd double crochet stitch on this first square that you made, so 1, 2, 3, and you're going to do a slip stitch through that. So that forms your first square in your second row. Then to do the next square, you're going to do it on top of the first one that from the first row. So you're going to chain 3, and then you are going to double crochet 3 in the top of this square. So I like to do 1 in the corner, 1 in the middle, and then 1 along one of the chains that formed that first square. And then this forms your second row of your crochet square. Then you're going to do that same thing that we just did with this row, where we start by doing the 6 chain stitches and then starting that 4th chain from the hook, and then you repeat this for each row where you are doing increases. So you do this whole process till you get to the color work where you're doing your first colored square, and then I will show you how to join that to begin creating the pattern for this square that we're making. Once you get to row 5 of your apple basket square, we are going to begin adding in more colors. So we are going to be adding in our light brown yarn, or a tan yarn, which is the first color of the basket, and that's represented by these lighter brown squares. And then on the next row, we will add in the darker brown yarn. So to begin doing that row where we're adding in the new colors, we're going to start by doing our chain 6, and then we are going to do our normal double crochet, corner to corner stitch to start the row. But on this last double crochet, since we only do 1 of the white before we add in new colors, we are going to do adding in the new yarn on that last yarn over of our last double crochet of this first square of the row. So we'll take our yarn, basically just make a little U shape, hook that yarn with your hook, and then pull it through those last 2 loops of that stitch. Then we will go ahead and we will take our yarn, do that slip stitch to begin that join, and then we start crocheting and have officially switched to our new color. Now, one thing that I recommend doing when you are doing these colorwork squares is that if you want a cleaner look without having yarn strands stretching across squares in the back of your work, to add in a new bobbin of your background color at the point where you are going to be using it again. So since this square is already starting out with doing 2 of our brown stitches, and then it keeps increasing with the colorwork and just the backgrounds along the edge, I recommend adding in a new bobbin of your background color once you get past this second tan square. So you will just leave this first part of your main color. You'll just leave that strand of yarn right there. You won't carry it, you won't bring it. Now, if you want to carry your yarn, you totally can. I often do that just because I'm a little bit lazy and I don't like to have a bunch of yarn ends, so I will just carry my yarn all over the place while I'm working with it. So we'll go ahead and do these 2 squares like this, and then on the last yarn over of this last double crochet, we will add in our new background color bobbin, just like we switched to the tan yarn. Leave that tan yarn right there, and then we begin this next stitch, and we officially switched over, and we just use this new bobbin of our background color. So then we'll just leave this tan yarn here to be used on the next row once we get on the 7th row where we use the tan yarn again. So you'll just leave that there, and then if you want to, I'll show you how to carry it on the next row when we add in our next brown yarn. So go ahead, finish this row with the 2 squares, then do the 2 more squares to get up to this brown yarn, and I'll show you how to add in that color. So after you've done those first 2 squares of row 6, we are going to add in our next brown color for our basket. So we'll do it the same way we've been joining and adding colors, where we finish that last yarn over with that stitch, and then we are going to begin, then we're going to do that join right here on the square, Make sure you tighten up your yarns, and since we are working on the wrong side of our work, the strands of yarn are going to be on the side that is facing us. So this way we keep all of the strands of yarn on the same side so we don't have any weird ends sticking out on the other. Then we're going to just do our normal squares where we do our 3 squares of the brown to get to the next part of the main color. But if you would like to take your tan yarn here and bring it up to the point where we're going to need it right here on the 7th row, then we will do some carrying of this yarn. So whenever you do your stitch, especially when you're doing this on the wrong side, you're going to take your yarn and you are going to hold it up to the top rows of the top like chain area of your square, and then you're going to crochet around that. So you can do that when you're carrying yarn on the right side, but it would be on the side that is away from you. But when you're doing it on the wrong side, it's on the side that's facing you. So we will just hold it like this, and then when we want to carry it up a stitch, we'll do our slip stitch right there, and then we will take that yarn we're carrying, pull it up here to those chain stitch areas again, and then we crochet around it like we just did on that previous square. And then we leave it here because we will be using it lining up with this last brown square we're doing on the next row. And then we switch back to our main color right here on that last yarn over, and then we will finish off this row with one last background color stitch before we begin the 7th row. Then what we'll do is then you begin your next row with those 6 chain stitches, do your first square here, but we will not finish off our last double crochet with our main color. We are going to switch to the light yarn, the light brown yarn, so that we can begin working more on our basket portion, then do our slip stitch to join the squares together, and then begin doing our next tan square here. So this time, if you would like to, you can carry the darker brown yarn to the point where you're going to need it for the next row. So what you will do is you will tighten up that stitch on the bottom there just to make sure it stays in place. Then you'll do your slip stitch to join the squares together, start doing your next square, and then you'll hold up this brown yarn along the back of the square right here. Instead of the side that's facing you, you'll do it on the side that's away from you. So you'll notice there's this yarn right here. So then you'll crochet around it just like we did with the tan square, except it's just on the side away from you. So then we will just go ahead, finish this row right here, and then once we get to our next row, we're going to add in that green yarn, and then that will be the last point where I show you how to do the color changes, and then you'll start crocheting the rest of the square. So now that we've gotten to row 8, I have gone ahead and crocheted up to this point right here where I'm on this last brown square before I add in the green for the first of the apples that I'm adding. So once I'm ready to add in my apple color, I'll take my green and then I will switch colors here, and then we're going to leave all of these basket colors right here on our square to use on the next rows, because instead of how we've been doing where we've been kind of stacking the browns up, we are going to be leveling it off, and then it will just be worked in that straight line right there. So once you switch colors and join the new color, and then continue doing our green square how we've been adding in all the other colors. Then you'll switch to your main color and then finish off this row. So basically this is how you add in new colors when you're doing corner to corner crochet on the wrong side and the right side, and you will just continue doing that to create the rest of this apple basket. And then once you get to row 11, I will show you how we will start doing decreases along the side, and then the same will apply for once you get to row 13 up here at the top of your apple square. So go ahead and crochet up to row 11, and then I'll show you how to do decreases on your square. Once you get to row 11 on your chart here on this bottom row, you'll notice that instead of continuing out to the left like we've been doing, it starts going back up. So what that means is whenever you reach a corner on a corner to corner pattern, you will be starting to do decreases instead of increases. So when you start this next row, row 12, we're going to continue working in that diagonal direction, and instead of doing that increase like we've been doing where we start the row with that chain 6, we are going to turn our piece like this, and then we are going to do slip stitches in the tops of those double crochets we did, and these are the this is along the edge here, so we do 3 slip stitches along the edge till we get to the top of this square. Then we do 3 chains instead of 6 chains, and then we start doing our row like normal. So basically we are getting up to the point where we're not doing that beginning chain 6 and instead continuing up, and you'll see instead of continuing outward, we're starting to work up. So that is how we do decreases, and then you just continue your row like normal. So when you get to row 13 up here, you'll see that is the start of another corner, and then you start doing those decreases along the top edge, and that is how you'll do the rest of the square, where at the beginning of each row on this left side you will do decreases, and then you'll continue doing increases to the top where you're at row 13, and then you'll do the decreases at the beginning of both rows as well for the rest of your square. Once you are finished with the color work for this square, you'll fasten off all of the colors and then complete the rest of the square by just using the background and doing your decreasing corner to corner rows. Once you get to that very last row, you'll start with 3 chains and then do your normal corner to corner square to do this last row here. Then you will join to the edge to finish off that row, and then you will want to trim your yarn. I've already pre-trimmed this. You'll trim your yarn so that then you can fasten off your square by pulling the yarn through and pulling through that last loop, tightening that up, and then you will be all done with your square. So you will want to make 2 of these apple basket squares if you are making the pumpkin patch blanket, or you can make a whole blanket from just these apple basket squares. But it's super fun to make, and look how cute your little basket of apples is. Well, I hope that you enjoyed this blanket square tutorial for this pattern. Be sure to check out the complete pumpkin patch blanket available in my shops at the links in the description box, or join the crochet along for this pattern in my Facebook group and on my blog as well. And I can't wait to share the rest of the pumpkin patch blanket squares with you, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you next time. Bye!